Hello and welcome back to the series Factorio Concepts. In this video I'm gonna talk about basic and advanced oil processing. So let's get started. Down here I have a little overview of all the recipes that include the 3 different types of oil. I'm not including lubricant here. I'm just talking about the petroleum gas, the heavy oil and light oil, as well as crude oil. So at first we have the basic oil processing, which only needs crude oil and produces per 100 crude oil 45 petroleum gas, which is not so great of a ratio when we have a look at the advanced oil processing, which needs 100 crude oil for 55 petroleum gas and light oil and some heavy oil. But it also needs some water inbound, but water is, as we all know, a free resource in Factorio, so this is not of any concern. Next up we have the last recipe inside the oil refinery, which is Co-Liquefaction. I won't go into detail about this recipe in this video, maybe in another one, but just so you know it, this one needs one of its products as well as an input already. So as we can see, it needs 25 heavy oil and produces 90 heavy oil, so it's shifted towards producing more heavy oil than anything else. Okay, so to get to advanced oil processing, we will need the basic oil processing first, so that we can produce some plastic and sulfur, which is needed for the chemical plant, for the chemical science packs, which in turn allows us to research the advanced oil processing. This should be just about the first thing you research when you get your chemical science packs up and running, so that we can benefit from the better ratios in of the advanced oil processing recipe. Okay, when we have unlocked advanced oil processing, we have also access to the oil cracking, which has 2 steps, the heavy oil cracking and the light oil cracking. So this allows us to crack all the other oil variants down into petroleum gas, which we will need most of the time, because especially plastic is consumed quite a lot and itself consumes 20 petroleum gas each second. So at least in my factories I seem to always run out of petroleum gas before anything else. So we should consider that when designing our blueprints, so that just about all the other oil variants, heavy and light oil, can be cracked down into petroleum gas. Okay, next up we will need the heavy oil nonetheless to produce some lubricant, which we will need for the electric engines. And it's also recommended to use the light oil for the solid fuel, because it has the best ratio. And after that we also need the light oil for the rocket fuel. Yes, so this is a little overview for what the products of the advanced oil processing will be used. So let's go over some layouts for the advanced oil processing. We have, as we can see, 3 outputs and 2 inputs. We could lay it out like this. This is 1 tile higher than this layout, which has 1 tile in between each oil refinery. This is also advantageous because we can fully beacon each one of these without any interrupts, because these are 6 tiles. This is divisible by 3, which is the length of a beacon. So yes, okay, I think that's you could of course do it totally different, but I think those are the most common layouts for the advanced oil processing. Okay, let's go over some layouts for the chemical plants. First up, we have it up here. Each is next to each other. As we can see, we would need another row just for the water output, and this also doesn't seem to be so clever. We could do it like this. Yes, so this one is one very common layout. This is quite nice because we can use this reduces the need for your power poles, because you can space it out perfectly and every single chemical plant will have access to electricity. Next off, we have the variant where we leave some space in between. Yes, this allows us to not have to tunnel under this and have this row basically unused, because we can put these then more next to each other. Then at the very last, I have one other layout which uses I think a little bit, no, exactly the same amount of space as the other ones, because here we have the zigzag layout. This is advantageous because we can have some external input into the light oil fluid line, as we can see here, which will come in handy when we have a look at my blueprint for advanced oil processing. Okay, now that we have that, we can have a look over to a very basic concept of how to set up all the oil cracking and the advanced oil processing. As we can see here, we have this line of spaced out oil refineries, 3 outputs, 2 inputs, and at the very end we have some storage tanks. From these storage tanks we can put some pumps in between if we wanted to control when to crack oil or not. So we could say only crack the heavy oil down into light oil if we have already 5,000 heavy oil in the storage tank. That's not so uncommon. I also use it, so I have always some heavy and light oil in my storage tanks. So then we have, of course, each of these steps needs water. So this one needs water as an input, this one and this one as well. So we could just hook these up together to one water input. So then we have a line of heavy oil cracking, which in turn comes also down into the light oil storage tank. And if we want to crack this up into petroleum gas, we could just hook it up directly, or if we decide to have some more conditions in between, we could just move this row a little bit further up so we can control the fluid input better. One more thing I have to say about your ratios of oil refineries to chemical plants, and especially between heavy oil cracking and light oil cracking, is that you have to keep in mind we produce most petroleum gas, then light oil, and then heavy oil. So this means we have to crack down the heavy oil into light oil, which means we have even more light oil, and all this light oil must be cracked down into petroleum gas. So we will need many more chemical plants that that have the light oil cracking recipe than chemical plants that crack heavy oil into light oil. So just don't forget this. We need more light oil cracking than heavy oil cracking. In my personal blueprint I'm using, I have it set up like this. So as we can see here, I have 2 chemical plants producing petroleum, 4 chemical plants that have the heavy oil cracking recipe, and I'm not so sure, these are 17 that crack all the light oil into petroleum. In a setup like this, these are too many of these chemical plants with the light oil cracking recipe, but when we beacon it full up, as we can see up here, these all have productivity modules, and in the beacons we have speed modules. This will only increase the amount of light oil that needs to be cracked down into petroleum, because we have a 30% multiplier. So we will get more heavy oil and more light oil, and then we get from the heavy oil cracking even more light oil. So we should keep that in mind, that the amount of light oil only increases also in the ratio when we start moduling our oil refinery setup. So this refinery setup and all the stages before it can be found in the Factorio Blueprints subreddit. I posted them there already, so if you're interested you can download it there. I think that's already it. So thanks for watching and bye.